Hi everyone, this is John. Welcome back to another episode of The Subcontinent. Through our episodes, we aim to raise important issues which are not generally covered by the mainstream media in the region of the former subcontinent. We will try to explain the issues, break down controversies surrounding it, and give you an insight into what experts and common people think.
In this edition of The Subcontinent, we will be reviewing India's strategies to counter China-Pakistan nuclear alliance. And we shall look into the education system in India and what future holds for the country's literacy.
Nuclear proliferation is a big issue around the world. And same is the case for Asian nuclear superpowers like Pakistan and India. The two nuclear-armed countries are rivals since their independence in 1947. And as tensions between both countries increase, so do the chances of full-scale war. India started its nuclear weapons program in 1967, and Pakistan countered this move by starting its own nuclear weapons program in 1972. India is worried, however, that Pakistan might outpace India because of China's strong collaboration with its arch rival.
Pakistan is increasing its pace of nuclear technology development with substantial help from China, and this can be worrisome for its archival India since both are its strategic adversaries. Their level of anxiety went through the roof when earlier this year in February, Indian custom officials busted a Chinese ship bound to Karachi at Gujarat's Kandla port and seized a particular item, a seemingly innocent autoclave that can be used in the production of a ballistic missile, enabling them to withstand high temperatures and pressure during a missile launch. This is not the first time that the developments of this simmering arms race have spilled over the mainstream media, and looking at the recent history of this neck-and-neck competition, no pragmatic observer would foresee any imminent end.
I think that the Pakistan and India's relationship, or you can say a strategic competition between the two countries since 1947. And that competition has been further intensified after 1971. And because of the differences between India and Pakistan, that resulted into the development of the nuclear weapons of Pakistan. However, India has another reasoning. India talks about China's nuclear program or linked its nuclear program with what we call it global nuclear proliferation. But in the context of Pakistan, yes, Pakistan's, you can say, rivalry or enmity with India is a cause of Pakistan's nuclear weapons program.
Here's the pattern for the last few decades or so. India announces the successful test of its new nuclear-capable ballistic missile, say Agni 5 missile. After a few more months, China seals a deal for a highly sophisticated large-scale optical tracking and measurement system to improve Pakistan's development of its multi-warhead ballistic missiles. Then it's again India's turn to move towards another cutting-edge modification for its arsenal. And the conflicts keep spiraling ad infinitum.
This zero-sum game between India and Pakistan and the situation of nuclear proliferation has also gained attention from the regional and international media. Let's see how they see this situation.
China says the seized material is neither military supplies nor dual-use items, but analysts believe New Delhi must raise serious concerns about the incident in the international context to expose China on its dubious activities. India is estimated to have around 140 nuclear warheads, while Pakistan is estimated to have around 160, but they're in an arms race to acquire more weapons. Most analysts focus on the India-Pakistan nuclear equation as a bilateral issue, but it's essentially triangular in its origin and core dynamics. But China has largely escaped accountability for its cynical role in nuclearizing the region. The most perilous flashlight region in the world is Kashmir, where India and Pakistan are in a long-running and incendiary dispute. A nuclear confrontation between India and Pakistan may decline surface sunlight by 20 to 35%, cooling the global surface by 2 degrees to 5 degrees centigrade, and reducing precipitation by 15 to 30%, leading to famines across much of the world.
Maintaining nuclear capability has turned into a question of survival for Pakistan. And India might have to tone down on its war rhetoric or engage in peace talks with Pakistan if it is willing to end their weapons development in the region. So far, India has acted contrary to that. Since 2003, India claimed that it was following a first-use policy, but in August 2019, India's Defence Minister Rajnath Singh nullified it and said, "What happens in the future depends on the circumstances."
The rivalry between India and Pakistan is only a curve in the spiral of nuclear adversary that may engulf the world even further. Any move that can alter the wobbly balance of power in the Asia-Pacific region would increase the risk of a full-fledged war, and adding any form of fuel to such a complex conflict would send sparks far beyond the scope of the subcontinent or even Asia.
Subcontinent, nuclear arms race will continue. Presently, if you see, there is a vertical proliferation taking place. Of course, both states will be not going to involve in a horizontal proliferation, but definitely they are improving, enhancing their nuclear war fighting capabilities in the coming years. Why I'm saying this? Because there is no nuclear arms control arrangement, and at the moment, both states are not, you can say, even contemplating how to, you can say, prevent this nuclear arms race between them. Of course, Pakistan offered at various occasions nuclear strength regime in the region, but India is not willing. So that's why my understanding is that in the coming years, there will be more nuclear weapons, more advanced nuclear weapons, and both states' nuclear arsenal will be fattening.
When the game is nuclear and ballistic, the whole planet is at stake. To better grasp the current interplay of forces, we should not lose sight of the bigger picture and follow the spiral back to its base. With a wider lens, we see China trying its best to counter the United States' drive for global dominance, India upgrading its military to be on a par with its neighbor, and Pakistan boosting efforts to keep up with the game. Now add all the other nuclear powers that further complicate this matrix. With this scene in mind, how would India play its card? Despite rounds and rounds of US sanctions, China is transferring nuclear technology and material to Pakistan since the 1980s, with reports saying that it developed nuclear reactors in Karachi and provided Pakistan with weapon-grade uranium.
China and Pakistan has a strategic relationship. Pakistan and United States have a good relationship, and they have been improving they have been continuously improving since 1 year. Americans had a role in the South Asian strategic stability as a third party, but in last year, Americans' role was minimized. One can expect the Chinese role. So China and United States collectively work, because United States have a good impact on nowadays, influence on the India, and China has influence on Pakistan. In a way, it could be that they can act and balancing, and there would be no nuclear war. Otherwise, India and Pakistan have to balance each other, and both states are rational actors. They are aware that what will be the consequences or repercussions of the nuclear war. I think that both China and Americans have an indirect role to influence both states, that they can act rationally and avoid the escalation of conflicts entailing the nuclear war between them.
India may have to step up its diplomatic options, maybe raising this matter to the Missile Technology Control Regime, MTCR, and other international organizations where China is a member to resolve the issue.
The people of the subcontinent are united in their common history, and people of these two countries do not want to go to war with each other. This is reflected by some of the opinions on social media. Let's see.
Referring to the death of a Pakistani soldier, ISI demands peace at least at Siachen border to stop having the young men of both sides killed. This one is the tweet of Prime Minister Modi after the test of the Agni 5 missile was successfully conducted. Parveen Sani claims that India and Pakistan as neighbours can resolve their territorial disputes. He also believes that the later India makes this decision, the more complicated the problem will be.
India has a below-average national literacy rate, and overall, it is home to the largest illiterate population in the world. But its youth literacy rate, which stands at almost 92%, is slightly higher than the global average. The school employment stands at more than 97%, which means that only less than 3% of children are out of school in India, and proportion of girls out of school has also decreased. Some say that this signals hope for the betterment in India's future, a country which currently witnesses increased extremism, intolerance, and instability under the Hindu nationalist BJP government.
Literacy has always been seen as the backbone of development in a progressing country, and the education system is what that keeps the backbone together. With an average literacy rate of about 75%, approximately 10% less than the global average, India is not even among the first 100 countries in the global ranking. Strangely enough, the country's youth literacy rate for people between ages of 15 and 24 is a tad above that of the world at nearly 92%. This has been achieved through myriads of successfully executed governmental and non-governmental programs and initiatives devised and directed by the country's great minds. India has been tackling this problem since even before the end of the British rule in 1947, when the literacy rate was about 12%, with increasing vigour through policies of free and compulsory education and equality of opportunities for all.
Well, I think it happened because of multiple reasons. Pressure from civil society to increase literacy, huge investments by the various state governments. We have 29 state governments. And 3, we had a law called the Right to Education Act, passed about 9 years ago, by which every child was assured of education at public cost up to class 8, and 25% of the capacity of private schools was kept for people below the poverty line. So a whole lot of things happened, and the government levied a tax on income tax and other indirect taxes for midday meal program and school education. For the midday meal program, a particular tax on school education, pressure from civil society, and overall a focus on literacy and education has made sure that we have 265 million children in school from class 1 to class 12. And the dropout rates have come down dramatically. Literacy in the age group of 6 to 15 has gone up to 95%, which is very good. We only have some challenges in the tribal areas, in the eastern part of India, where some children drop out after class 8. And now with this new government, they made sure that every school had toilets for the girl child. Because when a girl child attains puberty, if there's no toilet, there'll be a problem. And the drive by Prime Minister Modi to keep toilets has improved school attendance. So I think all this played together to make sure that most children will get 12 years of education in most parts of India.
India has best used its social conventions, combined them with the creative problem-solving capacities of its prominent educationists to create a good trajectory of growth in literacy rates rankings, especially for youths and women. Although over one-third of the world's illiterate population lives in India, literacy is not enough in the fight against ignorance, especially now, the era of distance learning, online courses and mobile apps.
The change in India's overall literacy level and education system have been covered globally as well. Let's look at how they see the situation.
Since the turn of the millennium, India has seen an influx of $2.47 billion into its education system, and the growth in those 2 decades has been clear for everyone to witness. If India is to achieve its goal of enabling a critical proportion of its citizens to access quality higher education in the country, serious reforms are needed. Low employability of graduates, poor quality of teaching, weak governance, insufficient funding, and complex regulatory norms are some current issues facing Indian education sector. India's gender gap in literacy has shrunk substantially for children and youth, but the gap for older adults and the elderly has seen little improvement. There are many edutech startups in India that are changing the landscape of the education sector by offering online courses and other means of e-learning starting right from preschool. These startups will play a dominating role in the industry's future.
These improvements are not without problems. The school dropout rates are high, there is a problem of ghost teachers, and quality of education remains low. Much was shown by the Annual Status of Education Report of 2019 in India. The study, conducted on more than 500,000 children in almost 600 rural districts in India, shows that education standards are now lower than that of 2018. Simple reading skills and mathematical skills have declined. And what is the reason? Right to Education Act passed in 2019, which actually made education free and compulsory for all those below 14 years of age.
To ensure the social and human development of the country, India has to enhance the quality of life, awareness and skills of people, and these feats are only possible through an overhaul of the country's education system. The government's flagship program for universalizing elementary education, Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan, mandates education for all children ages 6 to 14, with a particular focus on community-specific education for about 192 million students. Educate Girls, a non-profit organization established in 2007 by Safina Hossain, operates in 13,000 of India's rural villages to provide better opportunities. And the Akanksha Foundation has created a network of public-private schools to add extra funding for education in India.
In the rural areas, technology will play a great part. I believe that technology can solve the problem. India went into lockdown on 25th of March and the whole country was in lockdown, and I think about maybe 70 million young children shifted over immediately to online education in the private schools because they had a laptop at home, they had a Wi-Fi link, etc. In the rural areas, possibly children don't have the infrastructure. Government started 25 TV channels where they could get educated because this happened in the middle of the school term. So I think technology will play a great part because 95% of India has Wi-Fi and we can get unlimited Wi-Fi for $1.50 a month. In fact, the Wi-Fi consumption per individual is 11 GB for Reliance Jio and 15 GB for Airtel, the highest in the world. So I think giving every child a tablet with preloaded software, rich multimedia content and videos will solve maybe 25-30% of the problem of not having good teachers, well-trained teachers in rural areas, etc. And another issue is consolidating schools. We have too many schools. For 295 million children, we possibly have about 16 to 17 million schools. Because once we had a rule that no child should travel more than 1 kilometer up to class 5. Now we need to consolidate those rules. In the state of Rajasthan, the former Chief Minister Vasundhara Raje consolidated 65,000 schools into 45,000 schools. She started a school in every village from class 1 to 12, and that brought back 1.3 million young people back to government schools. It was tremendous because when you have a larger school, there'll be more teachers, more investment, etc. So I think technology, consolidation, giving more transport to children will improve quality of education in rural schools.
The dedication and genius of India's education visionaries, the likes of Sugata Mitra, Kartikeya Sarabhai or Seema Bansal, are among the other factors that are making the entire country a great school, and every living being is a teacher. One of the main forces of the greater good in the country's battle against illiteracy are the children themselves. Throughout the country, there are many places where teachers gather a group of street kids and start educating them on reading, math, English and physics. These children, who would otherwise roam aimlessly in their slum neighborhoods, are now India's soldiers of knowledge, inspired to go alley to alley and door to door to share what they know with more out-of-the-school kids.
You see, you must understand, as a civilization, India is the only country where the educated person is on top of the totem pole. Look at every civilization, every culture. Who is respected the most? It is the warrior, the king. And India as a civilization throughout our history always respected the people with knowledge. So in ancient times, every kingdom had a teacher called the Raj Guru, who was a guru to the ruler. Whenever the Raj Guru came to the court of the ruler came down from his throne, he washed his feet, prostrated before him, and took him and made him sit on a chair higher than him. So in our culture as civilization, there's great respect for knowledge of every single kind. And the aspiration of knowledge is deep-rooted. Of course, there has been some kind of social discrimination in the ages because knowledge was reserved for certain categories of people, but now all that is gone after we got our freedom. So I think this culturally, there is respect for education, and as society progressed, people saw well-educated people getting government jobs, doing very well in society. The aspiration among all sections of society went up, and when India became prosperous, people had more income. Obviously, the best investment any parent can make is educating the children, and those parents who did not get a college education or a good education, make sure the children get educated.
India's education system has been under more discussion, especially after the findings of ghost teachers by the Indian Education Ministry. Let's see what people think online.
UN Women India official account's tweet is focused on the female literacy rate in India, which is almost 22% lower than the rest of the world. In this Facebook post, Swarajya describes the Right to Education Act as one of the most disastrous laws of India, rooted in ideology more than reality. Ironically, calling the Right to Education Act an Orwellian one, Sankron Sanu believes that this act puts the Indian education under the control of Christianity and kills low-cost schooling. Santia warns the government to reform the education system as soon as possible. Otherwise, a misery might make us understand its importance, exactly like what COVID-19 did to the Indian health system.
With this, we end this episode. This episode was made possible by the hard work of our team, which works consistently to make sure that the show is as good as possible for you. Make sure to follow us on all of our social media platforms, and thank you for helping us improve by giving us feedback online. See you same time, same day next week. Thanks for watching.